Welcome to the World Intellectual Property Day. My name is Beams and I am your host for today. Today's theme is Powering Changes, Women in Innovation and Creativity. I will be taking you through the event, speaking to notable speakers and guests.
Please join me to welcome Koye Edu.
Again, good morning everybody, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for being here this morning. We can all see the theme of the day. So the headline theme is World Intellectual Property Day 2018. And we at Jackson Edu, this is our third event to celebrate World IP Day. But it's interesting, this year's zone has a particular theme which is also always chosen for us by the WIPO, the World Intellectual Property Organization. And you can see the theme for today, which is Women in Innovation and Creativity. So I thought, how do I start off today? It would be nice to throw some cats amongst the pigeons today. And I have 3 daughters, so you can see I have a slant for this kind of event. I have 3 daughters. But the other day, I tried to have a conversation with them to explain a topical issue of the day, and I was totally unsuccessful. So I'm going to try again with a more mature audience and see if I can be unsuccessful. Or better still, maybe I learned some lessons from them which I can tell them. I'll try and explain today. So, what is one of the 2 key topics of today? I'm going to pick, I don't know if it's the less controversial one or the more controversial one. Issue of gender pay. So I tried to explain to my daughters the difference between gender pay and equal pay. And I failed. So I'll try again, and then I'll tell you the lessons learned. So I think for gender pay, you go into an organization, you take the average salary of men, average salary of women. This is a UK new policy for the big companies. And you're obliged to put it out there as public information. So the average salary of men and the average salary of women in your organization. I'm sure most of you know what the results were. The results were very clear. The average pay, gender pay for men was significantly higher than the average gender pay for women. So I explained to my daughters that that in itself was not the issue. The bigger issue was equal pay.
For what?
Because equal pay is in terms of what position you have, and if you're being paid the same salary for the same position irrespective of if you're male or female. They threw it right back at me and said I wasn't getting it at all. That there's a disparity, they're the same, gender pay and equal pay, there's a problem and I'm not getting it. So I backed off. You know with women you have to know when to back off. So I backed off. But I think I finally found the solution. And it becomes very, very important in today's topic, which is around creativity and innovation. So this morning, normally I don't prepare speeches for events. I like to do it right at the last minute so I'm as current as possible. So I just went online today just to check latest debate around gender pay and equal pay. And I think I could see the points my daughters were making. So there's a series, I don't know if everybody is watching, called Crown. It's a Netflix series called Crown. Who would you think earned more? The person playing the Queen, or the person playing Prince Philip, the Duke? Who would you think earned more? Question. Answer? The Queen. The person playing Prince Philip earned more. So that is the problem in your industry. Even where the lead role was the Queen, the men got bigger pay, acting as Prince Philip. So really, I think the point my daughters were making is that men are just trying to be sophisticated in their defense. There is a gender equal pay issue. And I think that in your industry is actually a bigger issue, because how do you articulate a job description for equal pay, especially in the creative industry? In innovation, it may be a bit easier. So in my law firm, for example, we have levels and we have salary, and I hope we comply. I believe we comply on the equal pay. But in creativity, I think the question is, you tend to negotiate individual contracts with people. And I think typically the men negotiate better than the females do. So I think that's one of the cats among the pigeons I want to throw in today. You have to negotiate hard and make sure you push, right? People keep saying salaries are confidential. I say that as well, you know, so that you can hide behind it. But I think the message for women in creativity and innovation, at least within, because there's the big people you're going to hear today, who are the big people, but there are people working in the industry as well. And I think the message is not just for the creators, but all the people supporting the industry. So I think my message And I don't know if it's going to come through any of the panels today, at least something that's very important beyond the whole innovation and the creativity and the role of women is hopefully when the statistics come out for your industry in Nigeria, let's give ourselves a target in 5 years' time. The results will be satisfactory to all of us here. Anyway, welcome, thank you. I look forward to having an exciting day with you.
On that note, I would want to invite to the podium Mrs. Olubumi Aboderi-Talabi. She's an author, publisher, and the founder of Clever Club's Book, a niche organization that specializes in the production of children's books. She started her publishing career in a family newspaper business, Punch Nigeria Limited. She has served on the board of Punch since 1994 and worked in an executive capacity for 8 years as the executive director, business development and new projects. Mrs. Talabi was also the first managing director for the startup Punch Commercial Printing Limited, a subsidiary of Punch Nigeria Limited, which incidentally is the publisher of the highest circulating national daily newspaper in Nigeria, The Punch. She is currently a non-executive director at The Punch. She is a member of the Institute of Directors Nigeria, the Corporate Governance Society of Nigeria, and the Harvard Business School alumni. I could go on and on to tell you about Ms. Talabi. What we need to know today is she is well qualified to be taking us on to be the keynote speaker. She's had expertise across the publishing and managerial functions, and she's bringing all of that in as she takes the keynote. She gives us a keynote for today's event. Join me to make welcome Mrs. Aboderi-Talabi.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you, Jackson, Etty, and Edu, for inviting me to give the keynote address. I'm very, very honored. So, when Tolu and Ngozi were telling me about what they wanted me to do today, they asked that I speak both in my capacity as the current chairperson of the WIMBIZ Executive Council and as a writer to talk about my experience with setting up Clever Clogs and with writing children's books and so on and so forth. So, women, let's see how this works now. Women in management business. I'm going to tell you a little bit about WIMBIZ first. WIMBIZ is this fabulous organization started in 2001 by 14 individuals with the goal to provide, are more likely to innovate compared to those that are heavy with one gender or another. Such companies also have improved performance. So when I was asked to talk about women in innovation and creativity, women powering change, I wanted to just point that out. And then I wanted to highlight some ladies who I believe are doing amazing things in different fields. There's so many people, male and female, so many Nigerians who have great ideas, but because this is about women in innovation and creativity, you know, I've come up with a couple of examples to show you. I'm going to start off with innovation in healthcare delivery. So this lady, Temie Iwa Tubosun, started a company in 2016 called LifeBank, and she says her business is saving lives, and she has this brilliant idea of how to tackle the problem of blood shortage in Nigeria. She developed a smart blood system, basically an app that connects hospitals and blood banks. Connects hospitals to blood banks and blood banks to donors. She's been able to come up with a system, an idea, her intellectual property, that speeds up donations and deliveries in Lagos. Now, God forbid that any of us or anyone we know is involved in a critical accident. Sometimes what makes the difference between life and death is whether or not they have compatible blood. And that has been a serious problem in Nigeria. And someone applied her intellect to solving that problem in a creative way. So since she started, she's been able to deliver about 9,500 units of blood. And she says every unit of blood is a life saved. So there's creativity and good service to the general public. Now, innovation in art. I came across this lady called Donna Ogunaike, who has figured out how to use art as therapy. Again, another brilliant idea, someone with fabulous intellectual property. Donna has found a way to tackle the problem of stress in Lagos, or stress in Nigeria, or just stress generally, with a concept that she calls Strelitzia. Now, Strelitzia is the first purpose-built art installation used for theatre in Nigeria. It's a living, breathing art and poetry combine where you walk through it. It's like a diary, but it's a 3D diary. And you see things, you hear things, you smell things, and you're led through this process that's essentially therapeutic. It's essentially cathartic. And by the end of the experience, a number of people that go through it, they end up either crying or just like talking, just unloading. Some of them write down things. They become unburdened. And they make such an emotional connection with her artwork that she actually has had 23 shows since she started, and she was invited to put on Strelitzia in Hong Kong. That's local Nigerian talent there. She's actually an oil and gas lawyer, but she always had this love for poetry, this love for words. So this is her intellectual property. Innovation in sports. This lady here, Aderoju Opeajayi, came up with a niche marketing, a niche market for swimming lessons, basically. And her goal was to, well, no, the impetus for it was to tackle the problem of sexual harassment in the pool, because sometimes, you know, people complained, some ladies complained about, you know, they felt that perhaps the way the instructor touched them was inappropriate. And it was one of those, you know, dicey situations that they couldn't really say anything because, you know, wasn't, but they didn't feel comfortable. So she had this idea, her intellectual property, to have women and children only a swimming company that had female instructors, so swimming lessons for women and children only. And she's taken it further. The reason why she's very innovative is her approach to swimming lessons. Now, we had swim instructors before, and it would just be, oh, get in the pool and do this, do that. There was no way to measure it. There was no way to quantify any kind of progress. There was no way to know if any progress was really being made, you know, day after day. But with Deroju's system, you know, she came up with a card, she designed it. It's a tracker, so you can measure your progress, and you can actually see what you're going to be doing next. And it's quantifiable, it's trackable, it's measurable. You see, sometimes, when we have an idea, we may think that it's no big deal, that, oh well, anybody can think of it. But the thing is that until you think of it and put it down, maybe nobody else has thought of it. And that is intellectual property. That is how it can be applied and it can be scalable. So in addition to just swimming, rather than saying I do swimming lessons, she's packaged it in such a way that swimming lessons is just one aspect. You know, her particular market is another aspect. She's also developing something called Uber for Swimmers. And that is an app that will connect you with your ideal type of swim instructor. So she's not, in the future, she's not going to be just limited to women and children. She'll be able to connect people, men with male instructors, and so on and so forth. And she's also put together certified training for people who want to be life coaches and things like that. So that's innovation and creativity in sports. Innovation and creativity in education. This lady, Azuka, is working on an audio publishing platform that will put African books on your mobile phones. So she's a teacher, or she's actually more like the proprietor of a school called Dati's Pride. And she was irritated by the constant distraction caused by tech devices, mobile phones, iPads, whatever. And rather than be irritated by it, rather than stopping at being irritated by it, she thought, well, you know, let's turn this into something useful. So she came up with a concept to tackle illiteracy and distribution hurdles for publishers, for writers rather, and to also figure out a way to reduce piracy and improve literacy rates. And she did research and she discovered that audiobooks increase literacy, learning, they help students actually concentrate and help them develop critical thinking skills. So this is an innovation, creative way to approach both education and book publishing, audiobook publishing. And this is right here, you know, homegrown technology. So, I was asked to talk about my books, my creative process, and things like that. I love reading bedtime stories to my daughter. And we've been reading bedtime stories since before she could walk. And we read sometimes like 3 a night. And I wanted to read Nigerian content or African content. I wanted things that were, you know, culturally appropriate, culturally relevant. And I found a couple of books, you know, there were 1 or 2 here and there. But after a while, we ran out. And we wanted more. We wanted to read more. So I started writing for her. And then later on I decided, well, why not? Actually, the impetus for writing, for publishing the books, was when I read a children's picture book by one of the best living English language children's picture book authors in the world. She's famous, I'm sure, you know, if you're bedtime story fans, you'll probably read her stories to your children. But there was one particular book, you know, we bought it because her name was on it, so we bought it. I read it and I was horrified because the book, that was when it hit me, the importance of children's picture books. They have a text and they have a subtext. The text is usually something quite, you know, benign. You know, in this particular story, it was about, you know, a boy named Jack. His grandmother was sick, you know, and he had to go off on an adventure to go and find fruit from a tree and bring the tree back to the grandmother for her to get well. But the subtext of that particular story was that white people have ideas, white people have solutions, but the Asian character and the black character, they were completely helpless until the white boy, Jack, told them what to do. And I thought to myself, dear God, if our children keep reading these stories from different environments, different cultures, they may not develop a sense of, an appropriate sense of value in their own identity. And I'm talking globally, I'm not talking tribally now. I'm not talking about within Nigeria as an Igbo Hausa person. I'm talking about just, you know, as a black person, or as a Nigerian even. So I thought to myself, it's very, very important that we have our own narrative, and we have our own stories, and we tell our own stories, and we tell it in a way that our kids can also relate to and be proud of. And then also, the other thing that I was quite particular about was the quality of the production. I wanted the books to be good enough to sit on any bookshelf anywhere in the world, next to any author in the world. So I became rather pedantic I think I rejected maybe like the first 4 iterations of the first book, which is Toby Visits the Conservatory, until I finally was satisfied with the quality that I wanted, that I felt that this book could sit anywhere and be shown anywhere. And another reason for the books, another reason that, you know, that spurred the creativity, was wanting to show Nigerian family life in a way that was not negative, in a way that showed that there were normal people in Nigeria, quote unquote, that we weren't following a stereotype that international media might want to label us with. So my books actually serve all those purposes, in addition to being beautifully illustrated, Nigerian themed, you know, picture books that are exciting, you know, good for teachers to read at story time, good for parents to use for bonding with their kids over bedtime, you know, and it's good just for providing content with kids, for kids, excuse me. Another area that showed me why this was urgent and why this was important and why this means so much to me is because I have a friend who runs libraries in low-income neighborhoods, not only in Lagos, but also she started doing some work in the Northeast. And she talked about how the kids just want materials to read. They just want something to read. So just right down to the basics of giving them something to read, but something good, of good quality, because there were complaints about, you know, the quality of some of the books that, you know, that were produced locally. So just the thought of having something that was world-class, something that was well-produced, and something that was specifically designed for Nigerian children, you know, essentially, but African children or black children, if you like, at large, those were all the drivers for the innovation and creativity behind Clever Clock's books. So that's my own intellectual property. So back to women in innovation and creativity powering change. We can't have this discussion without talking about two behemoths in the creative industry. Bonani Austin Peters created something now it seems, oh yes, a cultural center, but back when she started, it was completely groundbreaking. In fact, she's a lawyer, and people thought it was rather doolally to leave law and set up a one-stop cultural hub. But it worked, and the proof is in the pudding. It's successful, it's continued, it's emulated. She's put together a library, restaurant, art gallery, community meeting space, and now, Terra Arena. And the innovation, the thing that drew people to Terra Culture initially was something that she did that was like an open theatre concept. At the beginning, she opened up the theatre to anybody that had written a play, that wanted to put on a production. She didn't charge them. So that was how she was able to attract talent right from the get-go. And it became a sort of a cultural mecca. Okay, let's go to Terra. Let's go to Terra. It became the go-to place because of that idea, that little spark of creativity. And from then, as we know, Bolani has gone on to produce Broadway-style musicals, Nigerian cast, Nigerian composers, Nigerian musicians, and so on and so forth. And she's, I think she was one of the first to do this Hollywood and Nollywood thing where you have someone who's a major A-lister, like Danny Glover, come and star in a movie that's essentially a Nigerian movie produced in Nigeria. And she's also been able to carry a 100% Nigerian product abroad, and do very well abroad, in the UK, in the theatre district. So that's an excellent example of a woman powering change, someone that is innovative and creative. And she didn't just stay on one side of the brain. I forget whether it's the left brain or right brain that they say is the creative side. She's obviously using both sides of her brain because she's developed a business model that is both scalable and repeatable, which is essentially what everyone who's in business, isn't that what we want to do? So innovation in business as well as innovation in theatre and arts and so on and so forth. And then, the last example I'll give, even though I'll repeat that there are hundreds and hundreds of women who are innovative and creative and powering change in their space, is Ms. Mo Abadou, who has the Ebony Life media conglomerate. Essentially, when she did it, it was one of a kind. Nigerian company from the ground up. I think she started off as one show and then grew to be a network, and original content. I think she had end-to-end control of her supply chain. So now it's not just TV shows and TV programs and things like that, game shows, talk shows, but movies that are, of international quality and that are doing very, very well. And I think the latest one is the collaboration that she has with a global, not just an African continent-wide, but a global content distributor. That's Sony Pictures, Sony Television, I believe, yeah. Sony Pictures or Sony Television Pictures, something like that. That is innovation, that is creativity, and that is a woman powering change, because she's also doing the same thing in as much as she's changing the narrative of Nigeria and changing the narrative of Africa on the international stage, as it were. So, IP, as the lawyers in the room will know, the protection of all of those ideas, of my ideas, of Azu's ideas, of Deroju's ideas, of Donna's idea, it's central to the success of all creative endeavors, because it's not cheap producing the books. Strelitzia isn't cheap to put it on. I don't know if I remember to mention that Strelitzia did so well that she got sponsorship, MTN, and other companies, they sponsored the show, and I don't know how many artists can put up their hand and say that, you know, their show or their idea, you know, actually got sponsorship, just to show you how innovative and creative our concept is. So we need money to do these things that we do, but if there's no IP protection, how would we be able to perpetuate, you know, our business? What encouragement would we have? This is why IP is so important. Mrs. Akingwe, who's here, she does Best Man Games. Imagine if somebody just goes and, you know, copies it, you know, or even with my books, you know, if they just go and print it off somewhere, it would have an impact on my bottom line. And IP protection is protection from unauthorized appropriation, rights, it gives you rights against unfair competition, protection from predatory contracts. To my mind, my own definition of IP is that it's a catalyst and incentive for ideas and for their proliferation. It's the bedrock for sustainable development and a foundation, a solid foundation for nation building. And I don't think I exaggerate in saying so. Am I right? Okay, great, thank you. Just a little bit about protection from predatory contracts. In the course of producing children's picture books, I have to work with illustrators. I have to work with, my next book is going to be translated into Hausa and Yoruba, and if I can find an Igbo translator, I also want to translate it into Igbo. And in working with illustrators and translators, we've had to come up with contracts to protect me, to protect my ideas, to protect my manuscripts, but also, I guess, you know, to protect them and whatever. But IP protection, I say that just to say that IP protection is applicable to almost everything that you do. Another example, an agency from the UK wanted to represent me, so that they would, you know, put my books in, would take it to publishers in the United Kingdom. And of course, who doesn't want Metafi? So I was like, yeah, I was all excited. But then I was like, you know what, hey, just, you know, let's just get this thing checked out, you know. And I sent it to Jackson and Edu, actually. They helped me. Thank you. and they worked through it and what have you, and it was like, oh, you know what, you know, this is too high, and so if you didn't have decent IP protection, you may be signing up, you know, giving away things that really are rightfully yours. And you should know how you can stick up for yourself. So for all of us that have ideas, like for the lady that designed, you know, this Ashoke outfit that I'm wearing, this is her intellectual property. But how does she stop people from copying it? I don't know. Maybe Jackson, Nettie, and Edu can give her some ideas. You know, but you know, if it's just important to know the value of what you have, the value of what each of us have, and seek to get it protected in a way that doesn't limit its growth, but in a way that sort of makes sure that you at least get the maximum benefit from it for as long as you possibly can, or for as long as you legally can. So yeah, and then the other contract, because it comes to you from different directions, was from a company that wanted to put my books on audio. And again, I was like, yay, great, let's do it. But the contract was predatory at the end. It was predatory. And you know, if you quickly sign away your rights because you're so eager for distribution or so eager for growth, you know, you'd be shooting yourself in the foot. So I guess I said all that to say just seek IT protection. Okay, so I believe that, oh yeah, so to round off, I just wanted to go back to that quote I said at the beginning about the value of having women in your leadership in your companies, the value of having women, you know, in your companies at all, you know, because there's some areas where they feel that perhaps, you know, women wouldn't do. But I just want to encourage you that women, just like men, you know, we have great ideas, we bring things to the table. So 3 things your organizations can do immediately. You know, if you find a woman that's innovative and creative, she'll bring positive change. So look at your entire talent pipeline. Sponsor future female innovators and encourage others, both male and female, to do the same. And make your culture more inclusive and more receptive to ideas. Like, for example, when, like I said, Donna, the artist that produced Strelitzia. She's an oil and gas lawyer. And of course, when she told people she wanted to do poetry, again, that seems slightly off-center. But if not for the fact that her company trusted her enough to sort of give her the leeway to explore this idea, we wouldn't have this wonderful, unique, original piece of Nigerian artistry called Strelitzia. So please be receptive to ideas when your subordinates or colleagues bring them to you. Don't dismiss it offhand. Or another example, the Dolphin Swing Lady Deroju, she worked in the telecoms industry before. And I can't quite remember I think it was, one or two things that sort of, brought up the idea of going swimming, teaching swimming for a profession from working in multi-choice. Again, it seemed crazy. Why leave something that's so certain for something that's so uncertain and so new, uncharted, for a woman with your education, your background. But that was what she wanted to do. And fortunately enough, she had enough people who were receptive to the idea to support the idea for her to take off. So being receptive to the idea is another way you can help. So that's the end of my presentation. Thank you very much.
That leads me very quickly to the next item on the agenda, which is written there as an interview, but we'll be making a slight change to that. We would invite onto the stage Honorable Desmond Elliott, but it wouldn't be an interview, it would be a chat. We just want to hear him tell his story in the way he chooses to tell his story. Honorable Desmond Elliott is a film producer and member of the Lagos State House of Assembly. He's a politician who has starred in over, he's a film actor who has starred in over 200 films and a number of television shows and soap operas. He won Best Supporting Actor in a Drama at the 2nd African Magic Viewers' Choice Awards and was nominated for Best Supporting Actor at the 10th African Movie Academy Awards. He started playing roles in soap operas like Everyday People, One Too Much, and Saints and Sinners. He remains one of Nollywood's leading actors, having appeared in over 200 films. In September 2014, he declared his intention to run for Lagos State House of Assembly, and he ran and won that election. Today he will be speaking to us from his wealth of experience across the film and I guess a bit of political experience. Thank you. Welcome on stage, Honorable Desmond.
Good morning, distinguished ladies and some gentlemen. Oh well, thank you so much for the opportunity, sir, and I feel very honored to be here. I'm so sorry, I live around the Badore area and the traffic this morning was something else. So I apologize for coming late. Do forgive me. Okay, so the plan was to come earlier than this so we can talk longer because I have plenary seating and I really hate missing it. So I'll just speak for like a few minutes just to lend my voice to this very important day. It's the World Intellectual Property Day, which is an industry or a theme that has brought someone like me to quote and unquote the limelight. And I'm very honored to have been invited to come and say a few words. It's very instructive that the theme for the year is powering change, and we're dealing mainly with women in innovation and creativity. And I was asked to talk about my story. So pretty much my story would be non-existent without women in my life. And I mean both literally and figuratively because in life the woman was necessary, and when I decided to go into the creative arm or sector, film making, acting, producing, directing, I've always had, you know, a woman I've always partnered with. To those of us who are fans of African films, Nigerian Nollywood, you will know that I partnered for most of my years as an actor with Bisodi, who I think is one of the greatest film producers and filmmakers we have in Africa today. She still waxes strong, you know. So I applaud every woman here in the house, so I think you deserve a wonderful round of applause. Yes. Reason being, okay, I have a long, whatever, but I'm not gonna, I'll just talk. Reason being that women are very passionate about what they do. And in the creative world, a woman does not necessarily have to shout to make things happen. And I'm a man, so, but having worked with women in the creative world, I see how deeply they consider things. And if you look at the various successes we've had, it has not been without a woman. So I see as well that in the Nigerian sector, the woman is beginning to take her place in the placement of activities as far as different sectors of the economy is concerned. In the movie world, that is not out of place. A lot of international dealings and contracts and workings and achievements and successes have happened with the woman, either being in the helm of affairs or partnering to make it become a success. Reason why this is happening with women, I do not know. But I think it's a gift that the men need to tap into. And it is a secret I learned many years ago, and I do not intend to go away from it. Since I fall into the political world, my work in the film industry has grossly reduced. And what I did in preparation to go into the political field was set my company in place. So I had my wife handle production and distribution, distribution and the production and post-production, I'm sorry. But I also made sure that the lady or the person to take over from me in terms of directing the films when I'm not available and blah, 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 was also a woman. So it took me 2 years to train her. And, you know, so she's in probably every work that has my name on it or the company name on it. And the reason is because I'm growing from 99 when I started and working with MM and a lot of women in the field of the film industry, I see how the woman takes particular attention. And because most of the things we do in the African setting is drama, women create drama. But in a good way. Women create drama. Men speak from a peripheral point of view, but they are deeper in understanding. So I'm not here to just make the women or the woman's head grow big and all that, but to say that there is something we're beginning to realize, and the creative world also, in as much as we do not accept it because of our egocentric feel, we cannot help but have the women handle things. Madam Cynthia is here as well, a woman who's helped us from BOI a lot of times, and she's been there. I don't know why you don't have terms in your banking world, but I think you'll be there for many terms because she's doing a great job. As difficult as women might look, they are very passionate about what they do, which kind of singles them out from what a man would do. So I'm not here to compare them, but to just commend the women. And in the political world, I just read on my way here, we're going to have the Congress elections coming up next week. And to my greatest amazement, I am seeing that from the party, upon every directive given from the national, they're saying you must have a committee of 5, 2 must be women, bracket. And I'm like, whoa, okay, and I'm not kidding. From the ward elections to the everything, and there's a bracket saying 2 must be women, 2 must be women. I'm like, good, good. So we're getting there, we're beginning to realize that we've given them allow and they're now taking allowance. And is to say congratulations. A lot of more work needs to be done, but I think that we're on the right step. And just to commend those who have organized this wonderful program and to say thank you very much. So please, may I go for my plenary sitting? Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I feel so proud to be a woman today. But before you run away, Honorable, would you just take 2 questions? We can have you here and not give you the opportunity. Okay, maybe one.
My question is, looking at the indigent women, and you're now in the public arena, what are your plans for identifying talent, promoting, showcasing talent, the talented indigent?
All right. Thank you, ma'am, for the question. People have always known me to be a woman's man. In terms of... Okay, that didn't come out. Oh, this thing with this creative world is impossible. Yeah, I always find myself having to explain what I say sometimes. Okay, so a woman's man in the sense that... Okay. Okay, in the sense that everything I do, I always make sure I get the woman involved. I think going through or surging through the film industry, I've realized the power of the female gender, and you know, encouraging them is only going to help you. So you think you're helping them, but you're helping yourself. So what I've been able to do is, beyond just having in my cabinet, little cabinet, which is my staff and those who I work with, my volunteers and everybody, I have 70% female people. And yes, and that has made the good boys of Surulere very upset. Because they keep telling me, why this one? Shebi, we are both in the same, we spoke together, we drink together. I'm like, listen, when I take her out, she's going to change all of you. But when I take you out, you're changing yourself. You know, so that has always been my plan. Also, there are a few things I think women can also learn from men. Some women usually are usually to the extreme. They're either extremely nice or extremely violent. Okay, this is just one negative thing I'll say. But I'm speaking now from a political world, and after working with a lot of grassroots people. So what I do is identify those extreme types, and then I nurture them in the sense that they look at the way, they follow me around, and then they look at the way I address situations and stuff, and they end up becoming even better than I am. So eventually that helps. That's one of the ways. Other ways are in meetings when we're with leaders. I always try my best to speak about or talk about these women who cannot get there. And I'm like, you know, let's assist them, because deep inside of them, they have the potentials to become great or even greater. From the House of Assembly is another great one. I'm glad we have very strong women who represent different constituencies. Fumilayo Tedrosho is one of them, who has made sure upon every bill that comes to the House, every his turns to his or hers. Every him turns to him or hers, because it's no longer plural as him being men and women. So we always make sure we change all these things and bring to the consciousness of people that the women must be identified. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Do you see women standing on their own without the support of men in the nearest future?
I thought that was the plan.
So, right?
Well, no, that's not the answer. Anyways, well, I feel it's complementary. You have to complement each other. Yeah, you can't have a solely female cast. They've tried, but you know, it can't work. So what I'm trying to say is, in every creative world or any world that has to do with intellectual property or the world at large, it has to be a complementary form of relationship and existence. That's my take.
One more question. So, what is your advice to the organizers of this event, and what's your commendation towards your work so far?
Great. I was truly honored when I got the invite, and I just say, let's see more next year. You could decide to make it twice a year, so it gets to the consciousness of every Nigerian. The average Nigerian needs to be reminded all the time. So we need to push on this more and more, and I think it's a great one. So keep it up.
Thank you so much, sir.
The next session is the panel session. The panel session would be moderated by the partner in Jackson Edu, Obafemi Agaba. I would now read the bios of the panelists, and I ask that as I conclude with each panelist, you please give them a round of applause to welcome them as they take their seats right here. The first panelist on this list is Uwa Ohiku. Now, Uwa Ohiku is someone I have known for years, and I could say a lot about her. But for today, I would just summarize the volumes I could say about her by saying that she heads the intellectual property practice in Jackson Edu. She's an expert intellectual property lawyer and has very many years of experience. She's also the chairperson of the executive committee of the firm's executive committee, and has direct responsibility for defining the strategy for the firm. With that, will you please welcome to the podium, or to the stage, Uwa Ohiku. Thank you. Mrs. Cynthia Muka is the Group Head Creative Finance Bank of Industry. She holds a Bachelor of Science degree from the University of Benin, majoring in Economics and Statistics. She also holds a Master's degree in Business Administration from the University of Nigeria, with majors in Banking and Finance. She's garnered over 26 years' experience as a banker, spanning 4 banks, including merchant banks, commercial banks, and development finance institutions. She is well exposed in all key departments and areas of banking. As an investment banker with the defunct ABC Merchant Bank, she worked in the corporate finance as well as the domestic treasury and financial institutions departments. In Mani Bank, which merged with Fidelity Bank years ago, Mrs. Muka was able to build up very strong and exceptional competences in private banking and treasury department, which she headed for a period of 6 years. She was instrumental to the generation of funds from high net worth individuals and conglomerates during her time with the bank, and this enabled the bank to meet its high liquidity demands required of a commercial bank. Today she heads the creative finance department in the Bank of Industry, and like Honorable Desmond Elliott had said, she has contributed a lot to the creative space. I want us to please welcome to the stage Mrs. Cynthia Muka. Next on our list is Dr. Ola Brown. Dr. Ola Brown is the CEO of Flying Doctors Nigeria. She is a medical doctor, a trainee helicopter pilot, and an entrepreneur who founded West Africa's first indigenous air ambulance service. The Flying Doctor Nigeria saves hundreds of lives across the region every year. She is extremely passionate about healthcare entrepreneurship in Africa and works with various foundations, charities, and governments to improve standards of healthcare. Dr. Ola was born and raised in the UK. She studied medicine and surgery at the Hull York Medical School, after which she worked at acute medicine across the UK. She then went on to be awarded the Japanese MEX scholarship, which allowed her to further her studies in Tokyo, Japan. She has published 2 medical textbooks, EMQs in Pediatrics and Pre-Hospital Care for Africa, and she writes articles in the British Medical Journal, New York Times, and Huffington Post. Dr. Ola Brown returned to Nigeria to start the air ambulance service, which uses a pool of aircrafts and doctors to save lives across Africa, West Africa. She is an international speaker who has received multiple awards and nominations. These include the Mile Breakers Award, the This Day Award, the Future Award as Entrepreneur of the Year, New Generation Leader for Africa, Lady Brown Personality of the Year, and Vanguard WOW Awards. She is also a TED Fellow and has been honored by the World Economics Forum as a Young Global Leader. Please make welcome Dr. Olapa. Thank you. I'll now welcome Mr. Obafemi Agaba as he takes his place as the... Sorry, there was one more panelist, I'm sorry. One more panelist I haven't called. I'm really sorry about this. I'd like to invite Mrs. Nimi Akinkugbe, the founder, Bestman Games Limited. She is the chief executive of Bestman Games Limited, which is a leading games company and the African distributor of customized Hasbro games across the world. It is a monopoly board game, which is available in over 48 African countries. The City of Lagos edition of Monopoly, the first African city edition, was launched in December 2012. Subsequently, Bestman Games developed a Cross River edition, a Nigeria Centenary edition, an Accra edition, and Corona Schools became the first African school to have its own customized edition of the game. In February 2018, the company introduced a cashless City of Lagos electronic banking edition of Monopoly. In December last year, Bestman Games developed its first proprietary board game, which is called the Bible game, Saints and Sinners. It was followed on Easter Sunday by the digital version of the game, which is now available on Google Play Store and the Apple Store. I apologize for almost omitting this apology, but please make her welcome, please. And I'll now hand it over to the moderator.
Thank you very much, Ngozi. I was like, who is this man that is going to be tampering with my God's gift? But I couldn't stop her. You know you can't stop your woman from what she set her mind to do. But I had that problem. Who is this man? And then I heard of Deroju. And Deroju came to the rescue. And my wife could go for her swimming lessons, and I could sleep at home in peace. A round of applause for the ingenuity of women. A lot of time women think that women are complex, especially when we are at home and we have to debate on some issues. At the end of the day, the woman would always win, funny enough, and then grudgingly will concede. But a lot of times, men, when we're sitting around the tables and having our drinks, have always agreed that with the benefit of hindsight, the woman seems to be always right, because they've taken a deeper look at issues. Even your best friend, when your wife tells you, watch out for that guy, since she knows what she's talking about. So what we've found and what we've agreed as men is that the woman is a very dynamic person. She's a multitasker, and she has a whole lot of strength in her. And the fact that the woman is dynamic and can multitask is represented here on this panel. There's a lady here that started her career as someone very well known in the finance world. And one would think that all her life she will just be dealing with finances, loan advances, and things like that. But she has been able to transform from just advising about finances into other areas. Games. And who would have thought that our monopoly games would be something we can relate with on the streets of Lagos? To tell us the story of the dynamism of the woman, of how the woman can multitask, let us get some perspectives from Mrs. Nimi Akinkugbe, who I admire a lot. Mrs. Akinkugbe, what perspective?
Thank you very much. Do you know that I had never seen myself as a creative until I got invited to this event? I just had the finance background in my world, but I grew up playing board games. Who played chess, Scrabble, Ludo, snakes and ladders, careers. We all did that. And those very precious family moments of face-to-face communication stuck with me and created very, very deep relationships and bonds with family and friends and our parents. Then flash forward to my banking career. I was dealing with people of significant wealth, and I saw the behavior of how people behave with wealth. I saw two colleagues, 20-year-olds, in the same office, earning the same amount of money, but one of them was deliberate about saving and investing and got onto the property ladder before the age of 25 or 30. The other was rocking their life every single weekend from Friday to Sunday.
That's me.
And some still made it, others were penniless. I saw incredible wealth, overindulged children who spent it all, and the third generation penniless. I mean, utterly penniless. And this had a huge impression on me. I saw people who got one illness, hadn't believed in insurance, and decades of investing was decimated. And this got me interested in educating the public about personal finance. I started writing my first column in Genevieve magazine about 15 years ago. And then we brought in our wealthy clients' children into the bank to play, guess what? Money games. And that was my first time foraying into the games world. And I thought that I must develop my own board game about money. And then you might call it an aha moment or providence or just luck. I was in a school in the UK and they created their own edition of Monopoly. Now, thousands of people saw that happen. Thousands of people bought that school edition. But I immediately thought, why go and do an EMEA Kinkube money game when there's Hasbro's Monopoly? So I was the only one there who went to Hasbro and said, I want to do this for Nigeria. So they gave me the franchise after 2 years of negotiations, a very, very solid business plan. And then I went back and said, I want to do the whole of Africa, 48 African countries. And that's when I got the distribution for African editions. This is to sort of, I learned a lot from Moab Hudu in terms of trying to change that narrative for Africa. I knew London before I ever went to London, from the Monopoly game, Old Kent Road, Mayfair, Park Lane. So now it's just wonderful that African children can, in Nairobi, in Dar es Salaam, in Mombasa, can play their own game. Calabar edition, we've got all the sides, Lagos, we've done Accra, and so on. And that's sort of where this came from. Then the recession came, and suddenly a deal you did at 180 to 1 was at 500 to 1, and you're paying royalties. And that's what made us say we had to develop our own board game in Nigeria, and that's the birth of the Bible game. So I don't hold it, but somebody else says it.
Thank you very much. I guess there's something that is very important from the later talk, the short talk Mrs. Akinkunbi has just given, and that's the importance of seeing your creativity from a business perspective. She just told us that it took about 2 years of negotiation to get the franchise going. So there's something we're going to come back to there. I just want us to bear that in mind. 2 years of negotiation. Now, for someone who grew up in London or in the UK, didn't live in Nigeria, didn't go to school in Nigeria, became a medical doctor, one would think that the UK is just a very good place to stay back in, work in one of the royal hospitals, probably be the one to handle the birth of the new prince. But she has decided to come back to Lagos, Nigeria, to practice her trade. One begins to wonder, is it because we have fantastic hospitals? Or is it that the pay for the Nigerian doctor is so mouth-watering? I don't know what the answers would be. But she came to Nigeria and also saw a gap, and that is access to health care. It's a different thing to have a doctor, but are we able to have quick access to health care? This lady, typical of fantastic ladies, didn't sit back. she went to put on her thinking cap and she came up with a solution. It would be great to hear from Dr. Ola Brown what has led to her idea of the flying doctor. Please fly.
So before I go into my story, I'd just like to touch on this point of multitasking. So I always hear women are such great multitaskers. They can balance everything. You know, you can be like a full-time mother to 10 kids, and you can grow a multi-billion-dollar company, and you can still get home and cook, and you can still, you know. But I actually think that it's become a bit of a scam. Yeah, no, it has. And it prevents us from negotiating well for who does these things. There's no, like, I'll tell you what I've done in the past 24 hours. Yesterday, I had a meeting in London, so I flew from Lagos to London yesterday evening. I got to London in the morning. I attended my 2 meetings in the morning. There was a dinner in the evening, and there were no flights back to Lagos. Virgin Atlantic was full. So I had to get on the British Airways flight to Abuja, and then fly to Lagos, and then drive down to VI to make it for this meeting. And I still have other things to do today. So you telling me that I'm such a great multitasker, that I can still go home and cook for my husband, and I can still clean the house from top to bottom, and I can just be this balanced, wonderful woman that can do everything. It's not possible now. And I still want to grow, I still want to be as rich as Aliko by the time I'm in the next 10 years. It's not going to be possible. And I think if all the men that we look up to, all the captains of industry, had 2 full-time jobs. Because looking after the home is a full-time job. Then they would not be able to accelerate as fast. They would have not been able to accelerate as fast as they did. So I think that we do need to negotiate a bit better for what we do. And sit down with our partners and say, you know, this thing is not going to work. Unless I want, for women that really want a big career, you've got to be able to negotiate and say, okay, these are the things that I'm going to do. But you also have to like help me a bit and chip in a bit, so I can also, you know, be able to do certain things. So my story starts in London. My parents were both in full-time education when they had me, so I was raised by my foster parents partially in a very small town in London. So all I got from Nigeria was really good news. And I think that, Mimi, you mentioned it before about stories and about the stories that we tell ourselves, and the keynote speaker also talked about the stories. So the stories that I was hearing about Nigeria were always very good, because you know Nigerians in London, they're very nostalgic, and they always say you get a free car and everything in Nigeria is good, and here we are in London suffering. And the story started to advance itself, especially when 2 of my parents' best friends, who grew up in the same village, became senior advocates of Nigeria. So they were very, very famous lawyers. You know, I was reading about them in the newspaper, and my parents were still sort of there in kind of low-end jobs in England. So the narrative about Nigeria for me was one of success. I was opening Forbes magazine and seeing, you know, Wale Tinubu on the cover, and seeing it was possible to have a big cement factory, and seeing owners of airlines, and seeing owners of banks. The only Nigerian that I knew at the time, because my circle was just, you know, my parents' friends. I worked in a bank. There was a security guard at the bank. And I was seeing Nigerians that were owning banks. So of course, I was very, very restless to get to this Nigeria so that I can be like this Aliko guy that I'm reading about in the papers. So it's about the story that you also tell yourself. So when I came to Nigeria, I had huge hopes and huge desires to build a very big company. And I think that although I had to be very, very creative about doing that and about raising finance, and obviously aviation is not a sort of a very friendly environment to go into, it's not a friendly business to go into in terms of financing and learning about finance. That narrative in my head, that was almost impossible to succeed in England, I'd have to come to Nigeria to succeed. And and seeing it on ground, that I didn't even know anybody that owned a private jet in England, but I knew plenty in Nigeria. That kind of made me think that this was the place that I was going to become successful. So I think the question you asked is, why leave London to come to Nigeria? My own question was, why not? I actually really wanted the economic opportunities that Nigeria offered. And I also wanted
to be able to make a difference. So in my tiny area of England, there are about 25 air ambulance services. So if I was going to start an air ambulance service there, then I'd be competing against very established players. Whereas in the whole of West Africa, I've been able to dominate about 11 countries with very little resistance because there was nothing here. There was a huge gap in the market. So sometimes this lack of infrastructure and the lack of sort of power and all the things that we feel are big problems in Nigeria are actually huge opportunities, because I was able to achieve a lot of things here very quickly. I've only been in business for 10 years, that I wasn't able to, or almost 10 years, that I wasn't able to achieve in England. My salary in England was probably about maybe £25,000 a year, but within 2 years of coming here, I'd made my first $1 million in business. That would have been impossible, absolutely impossible on my current job, if I'd stayed in my job in England. So I think there's a huge opportunity here for innovation and creativity, and not just in the creative world, because I think people think about creativity in making movies and producing plays and doing those kind of things. That's what's called creative. But actually in business, you have to be very creative. Even looking at your balance sheets alone and seeing how you're going to present it to investors, going to the bank and meeting an MD at 20-something years old and saying you need a loan of so dollars, you have to be very creative. So I think there's more to creativity than just the arts, and I hope I'll be able to speak to that a bit more in the course of this session.
Thank you, Doctor. I think again, one thing is important there is creativity. I mean, we're talking about creativity and innovation. And so what she's been able to tell us again is that innovation is about doing a new thing, but also doing the same thing in a new manner. And I think that is what she's brought home. But I'm going to have to come back to Dr. Ola because she's touched on something that is very, very, very fundamental. We will come back to. But now, there's a saying in Yoruba language, I hope I remember it well. It says that, Owo ni keke in rere. In other words, even the preacher who wants to preach the gospel, you still need money to reach out to everywhere, to everybody, in order to preach the gospel. So what is the use of a talent that cannot be activated? Why would we have a Mo Habulu that has all the glorious ideas of Ebony Line in our head, and there is no cash to push it to the forefront? Ladies and gentlemen, God is so kind to Nigeria that He has blessed us with creative minds and has also given us the sense to establish some institutions that will give us the money to back this creativity.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I'm a banker. My background was a kind of investment banking, treasury, working with high net individuals. So it was very easy for you to do that side of banking business without stress. One fateful day, my MD, then Ibli decided to redeploy to the creative industry. And most of us, including me, thought it was punishment. How? Creative industry. No background in theater, in arts. I read economics and statistics. What am I going to do there? But then, she just said, I believe in you. I've seen certain things around you. You can do it. So I got in there. What I thought of was, I have to learn. I have to meet with people in the industry. I have to understand what they're doing. So I started working with different people in the industry, even from Alaba to Oshodi to Onitsha, everything. Like she rightly said, creativity is not just content. Creativity it comprises a lot of other subsectors within the creative industry. So as a banker, as the bank of industry, what we did was to start first by partnering with the British Council, knowing that the British Council had been in the forefront of creativity in Nigeria and in other parts of Africa. So we worked with them, and we did this mapping of creative industry. We identified the various subsectors within the industry. We also did capacity building, understood what it meant to fund those in the creative business. Thereafter, we went on a study tour. We did the study tour in the UK. We did Expo, brought people from the UK to Nigeria. From Nigeria, we took people down to the UK. After that, there was a report. But the report, we had 2 reports. One from our facilitators, and it was, the industry was very risky. If you put in 1 billion there, the summary, you will lose 99% of this fund. Interestingly for the team that were with me, our report was that we can do it. The bank can fund creative business in Nigeria. If the likes of, we mentioned so many names, will continue to be in business in Nigeria without support from government. But we saw a lot of support from the British government in the creative sector, and there was none for us in Nigeria. But then people were still there doing business and making money. So we felt if these people continue to be there and still needing money to fund their businesses, the bank can start up. When the report was presented, and at last we got to know that we had a different perspective, I was a little bit scared. But interestingly, I got in there. My then MD, being who he was, and she is, just turned and said, "Your mama on you. Thank you very much. You went there as a Nigerian. You didn't just go there to listen to them talk." So that was how the Bank of Industry started funding creative industry businesses in Nigeria. What did we see? We saw the financial benefits in creativity. We knew that in Nigeria we had skill. Yes, we also saw the gaps, and we also believed that capacity building will help strengthen those gaps, and our creative sector will be moved to the next level. Those are the things that attracted us. And since 2011 that we started funding the industry, we've seen the positive part that for all the funding we've given out, 98% of this loan are performing. For the first time in the creative industry, so many businesses up to now as we speak have paid off before maturity dates. Wow. Giving people 4-year tenor loan and they're coming to pay you in 2 years. Then the music aspect was another deal breaker. It wasn't easy for us to push. When we started, it wasn't easy. We disappointed one of our friends here, and she didn't like it. But today she's one of us. And we gave I know that first time she was so upset. You can't get her, I said it's so difficult for me to understand, to defend this. I tried, it wasn't easy then. But today, we are riding very well. Then we gave out to the music sector that was caring, interestingly. Imagine giving, yes, money to an artist. But we saw the business side of the bank. Gave him money for 4 years, and he paid in 9 months. Wow. So we had a lot of interesting testimonies. The cinema sector, we have so many of them that paid off before the due date, and we are ready to do. Thank you very much.
That is actually very, very cheering news to know that Nigerians are paying back these loan advances. I'm not sure this is what we hear from the regular commercial banks. I think the story is different, and the only conclusion I can draw is probably the interest rate is more encouraging, and I think that is a reality we have to come to, and I think something we'll address when we're rounded up. Now, there's a lady here. She's a lawyer, I believe. I want to believe she's a lawyer. But the problem I have with lawyers is that they are busybodies. We are here talking fun. We are here talking about movies. We are talking about music. We are talking about arts and culture. And then the lawyer finds himself in the midst of all of this. Somebody is flying around carrying doctors to save life. A doctor is here. Somebody is playing games. The lawyer has found out. I guess what they say is that everybody in this room is educated, but the lawyer is learned. And we want to know what that knowledge brings to bear on the subject of discourse today. Intellectual property. We need to monetize it. At the end of the day, it only makes sense to the creative mind if it brings back money. How do you ensure that that money indeed comes back? I guess it has to do with an effective protection of the intellectual property assets. Owa Oyiku has spent the last 25 years of our life or more, 30 years of our life dealing with intellectual property assets. Let's get some perspective from a lady, by the way, who has some elegant steps in her way. What challenge she stands up and she's walking, you understand what I'm talking about? The law. As my mother would say when she sees me, the law. Over to you.
Good morning. Yes. Good morning, everybody. Femi, thank you so much, and it's such a pleasure to share the panel session with such accomplished women. Such a honor. A few days ago, I was watching a TED talk, and the young man said something I thought was very profound. He said, "You don't think of ideas; ideas come to you." And I digested what he said, and I thought, ideas come to you from day-to-day living. And I thought of the wedding party. Last year, I listened to Mo at the Wimby's annual lecture. I was there. And you said that you would attend wedding parties and you just watch things play out. The politics, the power play. And then you thought, what if we made a movie out of this? So you didn't think of it. It came to you from day-to-day living. I also watched 93 Days recently by Bolanle Austin Peters. And again, the same thing. When we had Ebola, was it an epidemic or pandemic? I'm not even sure what the difference is. Epidemic. The Ebola thing. And that singular medical issue united Nigerians to such a level totally unprecedented. Nigerians are afraid to die. So when the Ebola thing came, everyone was united. But Bolanle Austin Peters also, so the idea came to her from day-to-day living. And one last person I will mention here, I think she's still here, Chenyo Idachawa, the message. She's left. The water hyacinth woman. So she will drive down the third mainland, and she will see those weeds year in, year out. Usually will come in December, I think, and it will disappear in February. And she thought, what if we made something out of this? The idea, she didn't think of it. The idea came to her. However, an idea remains an idea if you don't give life to it. So you get value from an idea when you express it by way of creating something. You create it or express it. So what I'm going to talk about briefly is what I have termed CPPEC. So it's create, protect, preserve, enforce, and commercialize. So this is where we come in. I see Mrs. Talabi. So I'll repeat it. CPPEC, I coined it yesterday. It's create, protect, preserve, enforce, and commercialize. So I watched Wedding Party. I watch it now on every Virgin Atlantic flight. And I just think that Shola Shubawale is creativity personified. I mean, she just sends me really rolling in laughter. However, if you did not express that by creating the wedding party, we wouldn't have that today. So we have to, the first step is to create. Go to an IP specialist. Go and have a conversation. I have this thing. I have an idea. An idea is an idea is an idea. You have to express it to get value from it. Sit down with a lawyer or an IP specialist and have a conversation on the ideas in your head and how you want to put expression to the ideas. Also, protect those ideas. Protection is key. There are different forms of intellectual property. There are trademarks, there are patents, there are designs, there are other related rights, copyrights. Sit with an expert that helps you to determine what sort of rights we're talking about, and you also want to have a strategy around the protection of your rights as well as the commercialization much later. So you want to do it in Nigeria. What are you setting your sights even wider across Africa to the rest of the world? Have that conversation, and the IP specialist would help you to determine the sphere and all the things you need to do. The next thing you want to do also is preservation. There's no point, if you are interested in the rights you have created, you have to also preserve. You have protected them, you have to preserve them. There are terms to the different intellectual property. For trademarks, for example, it's for 7 years, after which you can renew for 14 years. So if you're interested in holding on to your rights, please renew. Do not let these rights lapse. So preserve. Enforce. I also listened to you more last year, and you said, you know what, you have to enforce, you have to be on the watch out. Make sure nobody is doing anything funny. I think Sister Labi also said so. Make sure nobody is doing anything funny with respect to the rights you have protected. It is your intellectual property. It's yours. Do everything you can to stop people encroaching. My colleague Femi is an expert in brand protection. I mean, he can also can add some comments later. That is enforcement. And the last, the C is commercialization. I think Ngozi is in the room. She's also an expert in the different ways we can commercialize intellectual property rights. Commercialization of intellectual property rights can be in different forms. You can do a franchise, you can license out, you can use them yourself, you can sell outright. So you have all sorts of rights. Sometimes you have, let's say you have 10 different types of rights, and you want to enforce or you want to commercialize only one. And you have the rest. What do you do with them? You can sell and make money. You can license a third party. We don't have to hog all the rights we have created. We have to think a bit wider. So remember, you create. Do not allow the ideas to stay in the head. They remain ideas. There's no value when the idea is in the head. So express your ideas. Create those ideas. Protect. Protect. We had something, was it last year or the year before? One movie that was stopped. What was the movie? Okafor's Law, I think. Okafor's Law. It was a mess. Because there's so many rights that are involved between the person writing the story and the scriptwriter putting it together, to the person producing the movie, and then even the film house who will show the movie. There are all sorts of rights that you have to be aware of. Mrs. Talabi also mentioned when she was speaking that she almost signed two contracts. She was very happy. Somebody wanted to distribute, somebody wanted to put it on audio. However, she came to us to look at it. Be very, very careful. So create, protect, preserve, enforce, and commercialize. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I think she put it very succinctly, and I'm sure we all have the acronym. By the way, that acronym would have trademark protection. And the only way to unlock that protection is to seek one house. Mrs. Oiku made a mistake when she was talking, and I will have to take her up quickly. She said, when you create, look for an IP specialist. Correction. Seek out Jackson, Etty, and Eddie. Ladies and gentlemen, I know today, this morning, we've talked about the Monopoly game. But I will not monopolize the wonderful ladies next to me by being the only one to ask them the questions that are burning in my mind. I'm going to take a pause by allowing the audience 2 to 4 questions for my panelists before I come back to round up with them.